So Russians have been pulling out their hair in despair at what's going on in their country, its economy, and their way of life. And now they're literally pulling out their teeth.
Izvestia reports that Russians are doing dental treatment at home instead of going to a dentist. Russians are actively buying kits for do-it-yourself home dental fillings. The number of adverts for such kits is 3.3 times higher than it was last year.
And we know those newspapers are very, very censored. And the reason it's being reported is because doctors and dentists are warning people not to do this because it's so dangerous. It's incredibly dangerous to do something like this at home. And it's something you only do if you literally have no other option. And people cannot afford to get their teeth fixed. And there's also a massive labor shortage in the entire healthcare industry all across Russia because the entire country is stretched. And that's because war is coming to every single corner of Russian society. And I spoke a couple of weeks ago about cannibalism and how Russian soldiers were caught literally sending messages saying that they were eating each other on the front line. This kind of thing hasn't happened since World War II, not since Stalingrad, and that was an absolute desperate situation. And now the Russian state's basically cannibalizing itself. One of the richest men in Russia, he worked in gold and he was a Putin loyalist, a state loyalist, has been arrested trying to flee the country on his private jet. This has literally all happened in the last couple of days. And that's because there's been a court order to basically nationalize his empire. And this is all happening because war needs cash. And Russia isn't doing too well in its bank account. And there's only so much cash you can get from tax and for exporting Russian oil. And now they're basically looting their own. They're nationalizing the private bank accounts of their own oligarchs. And this is going to end extremely badly for Putin because that's all he has left is his loyalists, his absolute loyalists, people like the guy that was just arrested on that private jet. And it shows an absolute state of desperation. This kind of stuff wasn't happening in 2022, 2023, or 2024. Top Russian officials weren't having their assets nationalized overnight. And it shows that they're basically running out of money. And all of this combined with everything that's been happening in the last few weeks shows a difference, shows a shift in Russia, shows that something is going deeply wrong and the cracks are starting to show. The former governor of Kursk, was also the minister for transport, was found dead this morning in an apparent suicide, but this literally happened 24 hours after he was dismissed from his position. And all this is happening so fast. Last night, Ukraine put hundreds of drones deep inside Russia, and that shut down massive amounts of its airspace. And there are videos and photos of Russian passengers stranded in St. Petersburg and Moscow, people that can't get to business meetings, people that can't get home. And the type of people that go to airports in Russia, the type of people that fly inside and outside Russia, are the top 1%. These are people who are at the top of organizations, of media, of government. These are people going to the Kremlin. These are people going to the heart of Moscow to do business. And they're the people who actually make decisions and who are integral to Russian society. These are people closer to Putin. You know, these aren't everyday passengers going on holiday. Only 29% of Russians actually hold a passport. It's a tiny fraction of the population. It's less than a third of Russians. And the people getting on planes and actually traveling are the top of the upper class in Russia. And the war is reaching them because the war is reaching every single corner of society. And this has been happening so much more frequently recently. In the poorest areas of society, we've had credit card debts go through the roof. I reported a couple of weeks ago that 13 of some of Russia's biggest companies have basically gone bust. Credit card defaults are going through the roof. And now people are doing their own dental implants, which is complete desperation. This is third world type stuff. And it shows that there's a huge problem in Russian society. And this is just the beginning. Ukraine has figured out pretty perfectly exactly what they need to do to hit Russia where it hurts. And they've been doing it in the bank account by hitting their oil refineries, and they've been doing it in things like Operation Spiderweb, strategic military sites that take out the places where drones are being manufactured and planes are taking off to launch missiles and bombs to destroy buildings in this country. And it's working, and it's terrifying Russian society, and it's terrifying the people at the top of Russian society, and it's disrupting transportation networks. These kind of attacks disrupt all sorts of networks across Russia. If you remember, after Operation Spiderweb, you had lines and lines and lines of trucks all across the highways that were basically held, because these were the same type of trucks that were used to launch the secret drones that hit the air bases. And then suddenly all trucks all across that part of Russia have to be searched. And that causes massive logistical nightmares. Trucks carrying cold goods to supermarkets, carrying medicine, aid all across Russia. And this is good news. This is fantastic news for this country, for Ukraine. And there's a feeling of positivity here. And I can see entourages all around me right now. Half the roads are closed because there are diplomats, there are ambassadors, and there are high-ranking officials from all over Europe constantly visiting Ukraine and have just announced one of its biggest aid packages ever to Ukraine, 40 billion. And things are shifting. Things are genuinely shifting. And it's a mood that I don't think I've ever felt before in this country. I first arrived here 2.5 years ago, and I never quite felt it like this. This month, 200,000 drones were made inside Ukraine. In July last year, in 2024, that was 20,000. That is 10 times more. That sort of scale is unheard of in war, and drones now define war. Ukraine, as of this month in 2025, now outpaces the United States in drone production, in drone scale. The types of drones that are being made in this country are tested on the battlefield within hours, and you get instant feedback on how they work, how successful they are. They get live data, and the designs of these drones are highly adaptable. They can be changed within seconds, the formatting, the blueprints, they can be 3D printed. And you have an absolute breakneck speed of technological advancements. And so you've got massive, massive, massive scales. And if you compare that to how drones are made, say, in the United States, it's slow moving, and it's usually contracts that are done between companies. You do procurement contracts, and sometimes these designs are updated annually because there isn't real-time battlefield information on how these drones actually work on the front line. So you don't get that constant adaptability and maneuverability. And so this country is now exceeding on the planet with this. And the reason I'm talking about the quantity of drones today is because quantity is about to outpace quality in terms of value in drone systems. Because the next thing that's going to happen is swarms. First, we talked about fiber optic drones, we talked about AI drones. The next thing to happen is going to be swarms. This is going to be massive, massive groups of drones that take off at the same time, that can overwhelm air defense systems. They can use AI to do it, and they can hit targets at exactly the same time. That is almost impossible to intercept and to stop. And whoever has the most drones in a battle of swarms is going to win on the front line, is going to have the advantage. And that is Ukraine. 200,000 drones a month is absolutely astronomical, and it's going to increase. At one point, it'll hit 1 million a month. So quantity is about to be everything when it comes to drones. I know we talk about jamming, we talk about optic systems, we talk about cameras. That's all vital, but quantity is going to be the next step. It's not about who has the most advanced drones, it's going to be who has the most. So things are looking genuinely interesting and positive on this side of the fence. And that doesn't mean that Russia is suddenly going to back down and pull out. This doesn't stop until Russia is destroyed economically, or unless there's serious political and civil unrest in Russia. And every single day, there's another story about cracks in Russian society and high Russian society. Again, these are people that fly on airplanes in Russia, and these are the oil oligarchs, and these are the loyalists to Putin. And the fact that Russia are now going after those guys, the people at the top of Russian society, shows total desperation. So that's today's update, and if you enjoyed this, please hit subscribe. I will be traveling across Ukraine and to the east quite soon to bring updates on the front line, to show what's going on in Sumy and areas in the Donbass. There's so little information coming out of those areas right now because journalism is so expensive in those regions. It's really hard to get reporters there, but I've got someone who's going to take me in, and I'm going to be bringing a situation update to show what's happening there as well. So if you want to see that and you want to see my future updates, follow this channel, and I will see you next time.